Is it possible that Trump knows where Putin stands?
It is entirely possible that Putin does want to stop whatever he's doing now. But he's not being asked, we don't think, to give up any of the gains he's made, right? In which case, what is the punishment for Russia for invading a neighbouring country? Nothing.
But that is exactly what's happened, because Ukraine was the weakest link.
So wait a sec. In this peace deal, Ukraine is the only one who's actually conceded anything? That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball's now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope.
The process has been chaotic, the bullying of Zelensky ugly, the one-sidedness of the pressure bewildering. But listening to the US Secretary of State there, Marco Rubio, do you conclude that maybe, just maybe, that Trump is delivering on what he promised of getting some kind of peace deal for Ukraine?
Last night, we got the first white smoke. Ukraine has agreed to a 30-day immediate ceasefire to allow for further talks. What has Russia said to this? Well, currently, nothing. Does any of this matter unless Russia is on board? And is Trump going to apply the same pressure to his friend Vladimir Putin? Welcome to the Newsagents USA.
The Newsagents USA.
It's John.
It's Emily.
And we should be clear about what this is and what this isn't, because, look, there is undoubtedly a breakthrough happened in Saudi Arabia in the talks between Ukrainian officials and American officials led by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. It's a proposal that will lead to a pause in the fighting on all fronts. It is a proposal that could lead to a more permanent ceasefire, but we are still a long way from that. There is no concession yet agreed by Ukraine on territory, although Marco Rubio is making clear that there would have to be some concession in that light. There is no minerals deal attached to it. And as you said in the introduction, Emily, we have not heard a word out of Moscow yet. And I think it's going to be a while, because American officials have got to go there and sell the deal to the Kremlin. And we'll see what Vladimir Putin thinks.
Look, I'm all for looking for the silver lining in this. Trump has only been in office 50 days. OK, he said he would solve this on day one, and it's taken nearly 2 months. But he's got to a place where something is about to happen. The only downside of this, dare I say, the only massing, huge elephant downside of this is that the only partner Trump has been negotiating with is Ukraine. And in the statement, it actually says the United States will convey to Russia that reciprocity from Russia is key to achieving peace. But it suggests that they haven't even begun the talks with Russia. Ukraine is not the problem. Ukraine is the victim. Ukraine is the invadee. Russia is the aggressor, the invader. So not to even have brought Russia to a place where you've heard what they think until this point, it means nothing. The whole thing means nothing until we know whether Putin is going to stop firing on Ukraine.
So call me naive, call me over-optimistic, call me kind of, just easily, gullibly led. Is it possible? I doubt it, but let me ask the question. Is it possible that Trump knows where Putin stands? That the Americans know what it would take to get the Americans over the line? If they've been doing the job well, you wouldn't just negotiate a one-sided thing with Ukraine, not having a clue where Russia stands on the key questions, because then you end up looking like idiots. It's perfectly possible that America
They've just got Ukraine to put down their arms. They're not invading anyone.
No. But if America and Trump will look stupid if Putin now turns around and says, yes, screw that, we're on the offensive. Why
wouldn't he?
Well,
Why
he might. But I'm just wondering, I'm leaving the room that there has been some good diplomacy done, whereby America sort of does know through ambassadors, through contacts, through intermediaries, where Russia stands and what Russia will accept in terms of a peace deal.
Okay, so the whole key to this is that phrase lasting peace. It is entirely possible that Putin does want to stop whatever he's doing now. He doesn't want to lose more Russian lives. He doesn't want to keep spending Russia's very precarious, fragile, heavily sanctioned economy on military hardware or software. He probably doesn't want to keep fighting. But he's not being asked, we don't think, to give up any of the gains he's made, right? In which case, what is the punishment for Russia for invading a neighbouring country? Nothing. It's just like, you've got what you want, could you now stop for a bit? And what does a bit look like, right? He never stopped after Minsk. He never stopped, essentially, after 2014. So if there is no punishment on Russia at all, even if he does stop, he can start again when he wants a bit more Ukraine.
Which, of course, then brings us to the next stage of this. And again, you kind of, I'll play the naive idiot in this conversation of thinking, well, I wonder whether there has been serious thought given to what this looks like to ensure what is left of Ukraine remains Ukraine. And on this, there are huge unanswered questions. What are the Europeans going to be able to do in terms of providing a peacekeeping force, or whatever you want to call it, a kind of a white line between Russia and Ukraine? How will that work? And again, the Americans still haven't said anything about being a backstop, offering air support, intelligence, whatever it happens to be, to make that happen. I mean, I keep thinking the European leaders, if they're going to go ahead with all these talks, which they are, about how you secure this peace, then have they had some assurance from the Americans?
They've got to hurry up, because right now we've had the talks taking place in Jeddah, right? If you accept that there are basically three partners in this, there's Ukraine, who was invaded, there's Russia, the aggressor, and there's America, who are trying to forge a deal, in brackets, a minerals deal, but a deal. So far, you've had nothing from Russia and you've had no concession from America. Like, all they've done is turn back the intelligence on and stopped blocking actual weapons from getting to Ukraine. But you've had nothing else from them. You've had no future guarantee of any military aid. You've had no future guarantee of peacekeeping. So wait a sec. In this peace deal, Ukraine is the only one who's actually conceded anything? That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
But that is exactly what's happened, because Ukraine was the weakest link.
Yeah.
And that's what, and this is
made weaker by what Trump did to it.
And forcing a surrender.
Yeah.
I mean, forcing a white flag to be flown. You said you said the partners in all of this are Russia, the US, Ukraine. Actually, I think Europe has played a bit of a role here.
Absolutely.
I think it's quite interesting that the British have been very closely involved. The French have been very closely involved. The National Security Advisor, who's Jonathan Powell, who, let us not forget, when he was Tony Blair's chief of staff, was instrumental in the Good Friday Agreement, and so has done this kind of heavy lifting.
He knows how to fudge a border or two.
Well, yeah, exactly. And he knows how to kind of what you need to, the sacrifices you need to get a peace deal. And sometimes, as happened in Northern Ireland, the unanswered questions as well as the answered questions. The whole fudging of kind of, decommissioning your weapons, which was, in Northern Ireland, the Good Friday Agreement was something that came back, and then the, release of prisoners was something that was sort of kind of sorted, but not quite. You know that there are certain things you're going to have to fudge. But Jonathan Powell has played a big role in this from all that I understand.
I seem to remember Jonathan Powell saying, over the Good Friday deal, he was trying to explain the art of the deal. I mean, genuinely the art of the deal, not Trump's, how do you sell a hotel to somebody. But the art of the deal is, if you come away from whatever you're negotiating, thinking you've got one over on your partners, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? And that seems to me fundamental, that you have to enter into a deal knowing there will be pain for you and knowing that everyone else is feeling pain too. And that's how you get to a place where it is kind of working for everyone. If you come away going, that was a slam dunk, it ain't going to last.
And that's the thing that makes me so suspicious of what has emerged out of Saudi Arabia so far. Because Donald Trump is not that person. Donald Trump is a zero-sum game man. Donald Trump is you win or you lose. And he doesn't accept the idea that there will be loss on all sides. He'll be saying, this is a victory for me, this is everything that I thought it should be, and he will not do that. And I think you do have to have some humility. And so far, some of the actors in this are not people who do humility very well.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Trump is very, very dedicated to the cause of winning a Nobel Peace Prize, but that's not quite the same as affecting resolution between countries that fundamentally have been in dispute for over 10 years.
Look, I suppose the only thing you can say at this point is that the ball, as you know, to quote Rubio, the ball is in Russia's court.
It was always in Russia's court. What was that brilliant line we had on from the Estonian permanent secretary that, you know, if Putin stops fighting, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends.
Exactly. That's absolutely right. But there is pressure now on Putin. And let's see whether the Americans are prepared to turn the thumbscrews on Vladimir Putin in the way that they have on Volodymyr Zelensky. Frankly, I doubt it.
Well, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. What's that great Americanism? Get ahead of our skis on this one.
Don't go ahead of your skis.
But if we do hear back from Russia, if Russia is at the table, the next step, presumably, is Zelensky revisiting the White House, the Oval Office. Trump yesterday magnanimously extended
It'll be
an
Ali
invitation
Frazier
to him.
all over again. It'll be the rumble in the jungle or whatever it was.
At least that was a fair fight.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yes,
it started
was.
off a fair fight.
Look, I think that if Zelensky goes, it'll be very interesting to see whether he's flanked on one side of him by Keir Starmer and the other side of him by Emmanuel Macron, and they're both holding his hands and saying, keep calm. No, just smile nicely. Wear a suit, tie, look smart.
He won't wear a suit.
No, I hope he doesn't.
I guarantee you he will not wear a suit.
I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't, because that was such a load of old bullshit that was spoken about. He was disrespecting the president because he wasn't wearing a suit, whereas Elon Musk's allowed to wander
But the
around.
point is right. Okay, sorry, but get away from the whole idea of like, oh, is he going to lose his cool? Is he going to roll his eyes? What he said continually in that meeting was there is no peace unless it is long term, it is sustainable. Until he gets that guarantee, frankly, nothing's changed. So it doesn't really matter what his facial expressions do. He can go and sit in the White House, he can sit in the Oval Office. If he isn't hearing that Putin has understood the need to get away from the borders, to put down weapons, and to stop invading their neighbour, nothing's changed.
Of course, and then we go back to where we started this episode, which is to say what this is and what this isn't.
Yeah.
This is about a 30-day pause in fighting.
Yeah.
It is not a lasting ceasefire. It is not a peace deal.
It's baby steps.
It is a baby step that has been taken in Jeddah, and there is an awful long way to go. I'm delighted to say now we are joined by Stephen Moore, long-standing Republican strategist, former kind of senior figure in the House of Representatives, who has spent an awful lot of time in Ukraine since the invasion took place. And I just help us, because it seems that it would be so obvious that America and Americans would be on the side of Ukraine, and you look at this new White House and the new administration and you think, oh, they much prefer Russia to the country that's been invaded.
Yeah, that's a puzzle to those of us that grew up in the party of Reagan. I think Trump's view is that somehow he can peel Russia away from China and gain some advantage against, what they view as the biggest geopolitical foe, China. I think this is not only geopolitically unwise, it is politically unwise, because 82% of Trump's voters have a negative opinion of Vladimir Putin. So I think it's going to be difficult for him and for Republicans when they stand for re-election in 2026. No one wants to have a picture of Vladimir Putin next to them.
Did your heart flutter last night, Stephen, when you heard the first glimmer of what might be hope of a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia? Or do you think the whole thing has got a long, long way to go.
Yeah, I think this is a longer process than anyone might imagine. I think that probably the Russians and the Ukrainians know how long this process is going to be. Um, I went to Ukraine on day 5 of the war. I still live there, although clearly I'm not there now. And what I've seen at the front. I've been at the front like 50 times, and we've talked to soldiers, we've talked to people that live there, and what's happened is there's like 25 peace agreements that Putin has broken. We spoke to one soldier in 2014 during the Minsk agreements. He was at the front. There was a peace agreement, and one of his buddies got up to go to the bathroom, and a Russian shot him. That happened again. And so he organized a group of soldiers to go over there and kill the Russians that were killing his friends. 6 hours later, the Ukrainian authorities showed up and took him to jail for violating the peace agreement. Of course, Putin then fully violated the peace agreement by invading another town in Donbass. And so they've seen this movie before. It's not turned out well for them. And, they don't have the level of confidence that Putin wants peace that the folks in Washington, D.C. do.
Stephen, can I just ask you about the Republican Party in America, which you're still very closely in touch with, and I know you're in touch with a lot of, congressmen and senators and the like. Are they in the same place as Donald Trump, or are they quietly supportive of Ukraine but dare not speak out because you don't want to incur the wrath of Donald Trump?
Well, I look at it this way. I think that neither of those things is fully true. I think that if you are a pro-Ukraine Republican and you are worried about getting too close to Vladimir Putin, you think that you can do more good by staying engaged and talking behind the scenes than by getting out and shouting about it on TV. Because when someone is shouting about it on TV, that means that the internal communications are broken down. So there's, any number of senators and congressmen right now who are making that assessment. Can I be more powerful in changing this situation by being quiet and working behind the scenes, or can I be more effective by making a big statement on TV? And I think the former is the most effective way to go.
Okay, it may be the most effective, but do you see them having any impact? Do you see that there's any change coming in Republican attitudes as a result of this quiet behind the scenes pressure?
Yeah, I do. The statement from Saudi Arabia was pretty encouraging. So that was it looks like that's going in the right direction. Um, and I think if you look at the way that it's gone so far, uh, there's a battle for Donald Trump's ear. And at the first month of his presidency, you saw some very encouraging statements about Ukraine and Russia. And then you've got people like J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard who currently seem to have his ear, and those folks are a lot less pro-Ukraine than we'd like them to be. So it's a matter of getting good people around Donald Trump that understand the geopolitical situation and care about global stability.
Steve, will you be the criminologist for us for a moment? We used to say that metaphorically, and now it actually feels much more sort of like a factual description, literal. I mean, between Rubio, who would, I guess, very much be in the model of the sort of Reaganite Republican who cared deeply about America's role in national security and international security after the Cold War, and J.D. Vance, who has got his own, as you said, ideology, and somebody like Kash Patel at the FBI and Tulsi Gabbard and Musk. I mean, where is the friction happening now? Who do you think is up and who's down in that sort of jungle?
Well, if you look at that Oval Office meeting, who had a good day and who had a bad day? J.D. Vance had a really good day because by taking on Zelensky on national TV, he did a lot of work to cement himself as the front runner to succeed Trump, whenever Trump's out of office. So he had a good day. The media had a good day. More people watched that than anything else I've heard about it in a while. I had friends from like junior high school calling me and saying, "Did you? What do you think about this?"
Mm.
The Russians had a good day. And even in a perverse way, Zelensky had a good day because he was at second place in the polls prior to that meeting, and with President Trump attacking him, he is now. You know, it, ironically, if Trump wants to get rid of Zelensky, he has, you know, solidified Zelensky's lead in re-election. So what did not happen? Who didn't have a good day is anyone who wants to get weapons or peace agreements to Ukraine.
But do you feel
Yeah.
like now
Who's ascendant?
Do you think Rubio's in the ascendancy now after the meetings in Jeddah?
I think that Vance is definitely in the ascendancy right now. He is probably having an outsized role in Ukraine policy right now. And I think that, if you look at Rubio or Keith Kellogg or Michael Waltz, a national security advisor, I think that you know it's like the intelligence services say you don't know about the terrorist attacks that we stopped. So, you don't know the influence that they had or how much different things could be if they weren't there
Yeah.
providing their input and perspective.
Yeah, and if Zelensky goes back to the White House, and Donald Trump yesterday saying, yeah, we're going to reinvite him and he can come back. What advice would you give on how Zelensky comports himself, what he says, how he behaves?
Here's what I like to see. I know there's a lot of people that differ with me on that, but you're going to so I'm pro Ukraine. I went there on day 5 of the war. I still live there. I put my life on hold to help. But I think that Zelensky would be well served by recognizing that Ukraine has gotten more money from the United States of America for its defense than any other country in the history of America, and that he's asking for more, and he's asking for stuff from Donald Trump, and behave if he's asking. And I think that wearing a suit would actually be a good message. Mr. Trump, I've come to your country before as a warrior. Today, I'm coming as a businessman because I want to make sure this mineral deal goes through. And if things go well with you, then I won't need those military fatigues anymore. And it's not complicated. Trump is not a complicated man. You come in, you thank him a lot, you flatter him a lot. You do whatever you're there to do. You thank him some more, and you leave. And I think that was the advice that Senator Lindsey Graham had given to President Zelensky going in. And I don't think it worked out well for Zelensky or Ukraine when he deviated from that advice.
So if he wears a suit and becomes a businessman, doesn't he then lose so much credibility in the eyes of his Ukrainian people? Because he has
Um,
come there to tell the story that Ukraine is the front line between Russia and the rest of Europe, not to fix a minerals deal for the US.
I am talking about what is going to be most effective
Yeah.
in getting what he wants from Donald Trump. Zelensky has 3 options right now. He's get what he wants from Donald Trump, get what he wants from Europe, or keep fighting and hope for the best, which is 2 and 3 are kind of the same thing. And if you look at the Europeans, Macron talks tough. He's been talking tough on Putin for 2 years at least, and they have sent more money to Russia in the form of LNG payments than they have to Ukraine for its defense. And if you and they've sent so much money to Russia, they have paid enough to pay for almost every Shahed drone that Putin has sent into Kyiv, right? So with friends like these, what I'd like to see out of France is actual, getting more jets to Ukraine. I don't know if there's any Leclerc tanks in Ukraine. So when you look at Europe, Belgium has $250 billion in frozen Russian assets, and they've done next to nothing with it. So, so we had folks here that were stalking JD Vance and his family, in protest. my view is go protest the Belgian embassy and try to get them to give their $250 billion in frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. So, again, Zelensky has three options. What's the most effective way that he can get what he wants from either Trump or Europe?
Stephen Moore, fantastic to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed.
That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow. You don't want me to drive it, do you?
I saw Biden do a.
I'll tell you, it could be. Yeah,
Introducing to you the White House shopping channel. Yesterday, in brilliant March sunshine, that neoclassical symbol of what we once called the free world became essentially an open-air car showroom. And the dealer was, you'll be surprised to hear, Elon Musk, dressed in his trademark black combats, no suit, little baseball cap, and next to him the happy customer, one Donald Trump, in his own signature attire, navy blue suit, crimson tie to match the crimson Tesla that was parked up on the South Lawn at the White House.
Yeah, in line with the change of name from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, the South Lawn has now been renamed the South Forecourt for future car sales. So I'm going to see a Tesla on the South Forecourt now. Is going to be common currency. I mean, honestly, where to begin? Where to bloody well begin on this? I mean, there are thousands, millions of Americans who've lost fortunes over the past week because of the collapse in the stock market. And Donald Trump is touting for the world's richest man because poor old Elon Musk is maybe struggling to put food on the plate of X because he's seen the share price of Tesla go down. I mean, really? Is that the presidency now? That you are, as you say, the shopping channel?
Yeah, so to take you behind the scenes, which a very savvy cameraman did, Trump is actually walking around the Tesla holding a script, a sort of piece of A4. He likes everything printed out. And a close-up of this piece of A4 shows not just the make and model of each Tesla so that they can discuss them in depth, but also the prices. And at one point you hear Trump say, they have one which is $35,000, which is pretty low. And then they talk about actual dealership deals, financing deals, where you can pay $299 a month. And I think of this as just Trump helping out his mate, maybe to miss a bigger picture, which is that Tesla is now, whether he likes it or not, the embodiment of government. It's become this kind of status luxury symbol of whether government is going up or down. And there have been reports now around the country, in Seattle, in Massachusetts, in Oregon, of protesters, of people, vigilantes essentially, with criminal behaviour, throwing Molotov cocktails, setting fire to Tesla forecourts, going to dealerships and smashing windows. I mean, this is criminal behaviour and, we're not here to sort of sanction it. But I think it does suggest something of the strength of feeling people have towards Elon Musk because of all his actions at Doge, which is affecting ordinary Americans, which is seeing American employees lose their jobs, or veterans worry that they're not going to get their social security benefits, or the elderly wondering if they're even going to get health care anymore. This is coming back to haunt not just Musk, but also Trump, because they are absolutely aligned, and the Tesla's become that symbol.
Except for one important fact. There is a structural problem that Elon Musk has. You are 5 times more likely to vote Democrat if you own a Tesla. It's Democrats who buy Teslas.
Yeah.
And that is his fundamental problem now, is that the Democrats are absolutely appalled at what Musk is doing, the power he's got, what he's doing in the Department of Government Efficiency and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Any self-respecting Republican yearns to own a Ford F-150 pickup truck. That's the biggest selling car in America.
Well,
and that is a MAGA car. And a Tesla is a Dem car.
Yeah.
And there's a really big problem. And if you listen to Donald Trump before he became car salesman extraordinaire on the South Forecourt, he didn't seem to have a very high opinion of electric cars.
We have, and it's what people want to drive right now. And there's a little story about it, but you're going to see it a lot, I guarantee you. They have so many electric vehicles, nobody wants to buy them. They're expensive, although they'll probably get them
by the way,
cheap now. Nobody wants to buy them.
3,000 dealers around the country wrote Biden and said, please stop making us sell something they don't want. Ford lost $4.5 billion. Let me ask you this.
You know the government is subsidizing that.
A lot. They're paying a lot.
Saying every time you make a car, we give you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and the people don't want them.
Okay, so never a Tesla OG fan, really. Never liked the idea of electric cars. But I think to your point about Democrats buying them, yes, but it's what happens to the share price. And it's the Tesla share price that everyone is looking at right now, because that was at its peak, I think, as we said on the news agents yesterday, mid-December. In other words, at that moment where Trump looked all-powerful and Musk was at his side, basically looking like a de facto VP. Tesla shares roared up. And now they are coming down, because it's not just that Democrats, have stopped buying Teslas because they don't like Musk. It's because people, I think, associate things that are going wrong in government with a man who's also, shedding space dust and space waste everywhere because his moonshots keep failing, and doesn't really know who he's firing, and doesn't really know where the nuclear experts were that he got rid of accidentally at Doge. They're suddenly starting to question Musk's competency. And I think that is relevant. It's not just who's buying the cars. It's whether the guy at the centre of it is actually any good at what he purports to do. And some people are just saying, you've got to sort out what you're doing now. Are you a car salesman? Are you going to launch rockets because that's not going very well for you now? Or are you actually trying to be the de facto head of government?
Look, let me run with your thesis that, you judge Tesla as a sort of, it's a motif for government of how well the government or badly the government is doing. You were talking about the share price of Tesla. Share prices have slumped this week in America because of Donald Trump's policies on tariffs. And I really think it's an interesting kind of observation to make about the state of the economy. You look at what happens in the UK and how difficult it is. You can come into power saying, I want to engender growth. It's really difficult to turn on a button that says you can have growth.
Yeah.
You can make things bad very quickly.
Yes.
And what Donald Trump has done is show that a president can affect the economy, but in a negative way. Because actually what has happened to the US economy with the flip-flopping over whether tariffs are going to be 25% or 10% and whether they're going to be applied to all steel and aluminium or only ones from Mexico and Canada. And, it has left the markets feeling uncertain.
Yeah.
Other markets just a reaction to what has happened, or other markets telling you something about what might happen. And the fear of recession now in America that Trump seems to be driving is having a profound effect on confidence.
Yeah, we should take you through what happened overnight between the Ontario Premier, Doug Ford, and Donald Trump. Ford is one of the Canadians, the sort of new breed of Canadians, who is fighting back. He's really angry with Trump's tariffs, and he's decided that Canada's not just going to sit there and take it. They've been the loveliest neighbour for God knows how long. And now he's kind of turned around and said, actually, we're going to whack up electricity prices in 3 US states to the point where it's hurting ordinary, everyday Americans. So last night, Trump then decides he's going to retaliate and says, right, my tariffs on Canada are going up to 50%, at which point there is a phone call between Ford and Trump. We don't know the contents of the phone call. We don't know how much Ford then backed down. But the consequence was, whilst they were selling cars on the White House lawn, and whilst we should point out the Dow was starting to go down, it finished down 1%, the Nasdaq had gone down 4% the day before, they arrived at a deal whereby the tariffs with Canada, with Ontario, had ended, suddenly miraculously disappearing. So I think Trump is using tariffs as this kind of chimera. They don't really exist until they do, and then they disappear again overnight. We don't actually know what material damage they're doing, but they are, as you say, creating this massive instability with people who are just like scratching their heads and thinking, do I want to get into investment here? Do I want to get into the markets? Do I trust what's happening overnight? Or maybe I'll just put all my wealth in gold. Gold is what you go to when you don't trust markets, and gold is shooting up in price.
Donald Trump thought that he would be able to do tit without there ever being tat. And in a trade war, you do get tit for tat. And sure enough, we're going to see Europe retaliate at some point for the tariffs that have now been imposed on steel and aluminium exports going into America. You just don't know where it ends up. These things are easier to start than to stop. And Donald Trump at the moment seems to believe that there is long-term pain that is worth it for some rebalancing of the US economy, where suddenly all the steel mills will suddenly move to America, creating thousands of manufacturing jobs in America, and it will build the US economy. That's the bet that Donald Trump is having now. And I think that big companies take strategic decisions over whether they're going to set up a mill in Canada or Mexico or Europe or America are bigger than that. And
because they want to believe in the rule of law. They want to believe that the prisoners that get imprisoned aren't suddenly going to become Donald Trump's personal army. They want to believe that when government efficiency takes place, it's not just firing really important federal workers without actually knowing what they do. I think there are other things going into whether you move your company into Trumpland right now.
And it's also a mighty gamble that Donald Trump, having promised that the economy would get better on day one of a Trump presidency, are now seeing their savings, their investments, their pensions, their 401k plummeting in value. And the falls are real. And people are looking at that and thinking, God, can I afford to retire? Donald Trump wants to make all the federal workforce unemployed. So they're looking at their 401ks and thinking, I can't afford to retire now because what I have in my savings pot is nothing like big enough.
Yeah. We should say, as they say on CNBC, that share prices may go up as well as down. And we should say that after...
Are you auditioning for a job on CNBC?
I am. Yes, I am. I'm rumbled. After that parade on the White House, Tesla actually ended up 3%.
But still down massively from where it was.
I mean, but also, I'm just saying, he has the power, not just to sell cars, but to move markets.
Well, he is getting healthier. He's really...
I saw him yesterday, and I think he's lost 30 pounds.
Okay, he looks great. And he told me he's not using, for example, if he has a burger now, he usually doesn't have it with a bun. He's made...
Oh, I didn't know that he was actually changing his diet.
Oh, you didn't know that part?
No.
Okay, well, we did talk about it. I hope I'm not revealing something I shouldn't.
That is RFK with Sean Hannity of Fox News discussing Trump's waistline, I think, in a burger place, a shack.
RFK, of course, is the Health Secretary, Health and Human Services Secretary, and Sean Hannity, the Fox anchor. And God, he's good, isn't he great? I mean, I love him. I mean, he's looking really good. 30 pounds he's lost. I mean, he's looking absolutely fantastic.
I think while we're talking about the health of America, we should mention that RFK, of course, the head of the health department, is a vaccine skeptic. And the CDC, the Centre for Disease Control, is warning now about the very real possibility of a measles epidemic in the country. We had the first death from measles in over a decade, mentioned last week.
Yeah.
They're now talking about 58 more cases.
Yeah, so in East Texas, I think around Lubbock, there was a measles death, and it was in a Mennonite community where very low levels of vaccination. And sure enough, there are measles outbreaks taking place around America, pockets, but a real fear that with the vaccine skepticism, so there will be an exponential rise in the number of measles cases breaking out.
But hey, burgers without buns.
But burgers without buns. And Donald, you're looking great. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
The Newsagents USA.